The task of capturing the essence of Nier in a few words is not to be taken lightly. It's difficult to encapsulate something quite so variable. A game that flits whimsically and disarmingly between moments of sublime genius and thorough mediocrity. Indeed, Nier is often so fundamentally at odds with itself that this burden may prove too great for some. For those willing to overlook and even embrace its flaws, however, Nier captures a sublime surrealness that far outshines the peaks of its most imaginative RPG contemporaries. In terms of storytelling at large, Nier is quite simple. A father's struggle to save his frail and moribund daughter from a world destined to wither and decay. A simple and straightforward goal. Nier is a game about perspective, both literally and figuratively. It ponders notions of sacrifice and futility, of misplaced idealism and duality, themes that align beautifully with a fundamental role-playing tenet, the attainment of an overarching and seemingly unreachable ideal of certain and unwavering virtue, a single and pure motivation. Thus, like many RPGs in the same vein, it's crucial to examine Nier according to how its realization facilitates or informs any analysis of these main themes. Regard design choices as means to an end, yet don't turn a blind eye to shortcomings in service of this end, nor any flaws that are a major disruption or downright unbearable. First and foremost, Nier's presentation is quite remarkable, though not always in a positive way. Although it's hard to fully appreciate years removed from its release, even compared to its competition at the time, Nier underwhelmed visually. While character models are striking and distinct, the most notable criticism of Nier is its basic and borderline banal world design. Most of its sweeping plains are barren and indistinct, and its towns and villages feel small and empty. Indeed, this is a sensation magnified by other quirks of Nier's construction. Players will quickly notice details like the repetitive textures of its landscapes or impersonal and unfocused interactions with NPCs. Nonetheless, there is a diversity to Nier's world. There are spectacular and atmospheric locations to be found, yet Nier is one of the few games that shirks any attempt to rationalize such variety through a sense of journey or scope. This is reinforced by the back and forth of the game's quest structure that requires players to revisit locations frequently to a tedious degree for both side quests and the main storyline. In fact, the construction of Nier's map is, in some ways, so convenient it almost seems laughable. There are few games that present these RPG tropes in quite such a naked manner. So stark is this transparency that it's often difficult to dispel the notion that the world of Nier is slowly unraveling at the seams. In more concrete terms, players will tire of this repetition thanks in no small part to a rather lackluster means of fast travel. That will likely be to the detriment of their long-term fondness for some of Nier's more unique environments. This is a primary contributor in instilling an overriding sense of futility that doesn't end there. Nier leans, therefore, on other facets of its production to shoulder the load and create a sense of identity that makes exploration in itself more valuable to players. Unfortunately, however, this is the point where any critique of Nier must inevitably deviate. From one angle, Nier's soundtrack is the one truly magnificent feature of Nier's design that manages to almost single-handedly salvage much of what many rightly regard as fodder. To others, however, the soundtrack is so much more. It's the glue that solidifies Nier into a sum far greater than its parts. Nier's soaring and angelic choral score is almost hypnotic, lulling players into an uncomfortable state of reverie. This inescapable dreaminess is crucial to reinforcing the notion of transient idyllicism, by emphasizing an uncertainty that makes many of Nier's insights all the more enjoyable. Amongst all this speculation about Nier's cerebral genius, it's important not to forget Nier's more tangible qualities and deficiencies. In terms of its bare action RPG tools, Nier is fairly unremarkable. Simple combos, guard breaks, an assortment of magical moves and evasive maneuvers coalesce to form a solid platform, but nothing spectacular in and of themselves. This is particularly evident in light of Nier's dungeon design, where basic enemy encounters and scenarios are fairly uninspired, due largely to a lack of enemy variety. Clashes with bosses, on the other hand, are far more rewarding, providing plenty of high-octane moments, interesting combat arenas, and a satisfying degree of challenge. Most notable are the bullet hell elements, used liberally in almost all boss skirmishes, transforming them into more strategic and deliberate affairs, forcing players to use Nier's tools more carefully and consider melee, ranged, and defensive options. There are positive sides to Nier's dungeon design beyond these epic boss encounters. This is where Nier's soundtrack shines the most, and combined with distinct aesthetic direction, there is a tremendous sense of intrigue and mystery. Puzzle elements come to the fore, especially in later dungeons, that only enhance these perceived perplexities. Indeed, experimentation pervades most of Nier's main quest design to great effect, both inside its dungeons and out. These shifts aren't notable simply for their refreshing novelty and inherent oddity, but for their contribution to Nier's greatest triumph. Through all these disparate and incongruous elements, Nier ascends beyond a simple action RPG to become an object of immense curiosity, to be thoroughly examined and continually re-evaluated. It teases players, tempting them to pull at its loose threads to see what they uncover, constantly beckoning them towards a greater revelation. Throughout its course, Nier retains a spark of something very special that may, unfortunately, be too well hidden for some. Nonetheless, it fits squarely into a category of games whose flaws are, on the whole, overshadowed by their strengths. That's not to disregard these flaws as mere hindrances. They're bordering on fatal, and do far more than slowly erode players' forbearance. They're an inescapable affront. Yet, even under such scrutiny, Nier is still a game where enjoyment, and to a large extent appreciation, can be gleaned by those with the patience to see it through, and most certainly is an experience that can't easily be replicated.